Whenever you're ready, sir. A very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you very much for joining us today afternoon on this special media briefing that we have for you. As you know, Honorable Prime Minister is scheduled to leave later tonight for first Italy, Rome, and then to the United Kingdom, Glasgow. We have the privilege of having with us here Shri Harshvardhan Shringla, Foreign Secretary, to give us a sense of what the visit is about and what we can expect. Also to take some questions. I know you have a lot of interest in this visit. We also have the privilege of having with us Srinivas Gothru, Joint Secretary, UNES, who deals with the climate change aspects of this. So welcome once again. I would request Honorable Foreign Secretary to perhaps say something in the beginning to give us a sense of where we are, and then we will open the floor for some few questions. So the floor is yours.
Is it on? Namaskar and good afternoon to all our friends from the media. This briefing is about the Prime Minister's travel to Rome and Glasgow for two important international conferences, the 16th G20 Summit and the World Leaders Summit of COP26. Prime Minister will be in Rome, Italy from the 29th to the 31st of October. He'll reach Rome on 29th morning and he'll depart Rome on the evening of 31st October for Glasgow. He would be in Rome to attend the G20 summit at the invitation of the Prime Minister of Italy, His Excellency Mr. Mario Draghi. This would be Prime Minister's 8th G20 summit. He has already participated in 7 G20 summits before this. You are aware that the summit last year, hosted by Saudi Arabia, was held virtually because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The last in-person summit that the Prime Minister had attended was in Osaka in June 2019. Italy's theme for its presidency is People, Planet, Prosperity. It actually comes from the 2030 UN Agenda for Sustainable Development. There are 5 Ps here, but Italy has chosen to retain the 3 Ps as being the theme for the G20 summit. And the focus of Italy is on recovery from the pandemic and strengthening global health governance, economic recovery and resilience, climate change and energy transition, and sustainable development and food security. India fully supports the priority areas chosen by Italy and government to tackle the global financial crisis of 2008. It responded effectively to the crisis, thus becoming the premier forum for international economic cooperation. Since then, the G20 agenda has gradually expanded to include a number of socio-economic important issues of socio-economic importance, with a strong emphasis on achievement of sustainable development and climate goals. Today, the G20 represents approximately 80% of the world's GDP, 75% of global trade, and 60% of the world's population. Thus, it is fitting to say that over time, the G20 has emerged as not only the premier global forum for international economic cooperation, but also an important platform to exchange, innovate, and deliberate on policy issues that have a direct and tangible impact on the quality of life of our citizens. And this could be in the areas of global financial stability, sustainable finance, infrastructure, health, food security, education, labor, employment, energy and climate change, digital economy, women's empowerment, and innovation. And this is just to name a few. The G20's success and continued relevance can be measured by its immediate response to the COVID-19 pandemic and its focus on sustainable and resilient economic recovery from the pandemic. As a founding member of the G20, India has always been a proactive and positive player in its processes, speaking not only for itself but also for the larger developing world. We are one of the few developing countries that are a part of the G20. We have strongly advocated the full implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, and the Paris Agreement, among other international commitments. We have also been a strong voice in seeking reform of the multilateral system, including global health governance architecture with the WHO at its center, the global trading system with the WTO at its core, and the international financial architecture to make the system more responsive, inclusive, and representative, and reflective of contemporary realities. Let me spend a few minutes to go over the focus areas of the upcoming G20 summit, along with India's position, contribution in each of these agenda items. Might find them a little lengthy, but the idea is to make sure that we respond to any queries that you have preemptively. As I mentioned earlier, the thrust of the upcoming summit will be on economic and health recovery, climate change and sustainable development. We are now close to the second year of our dealing with the pandemic. Obviously, the devastation it has caused cannot be overstated. It is therefore not surprising that the Italian presidency has kept its focus on recovery and, of course, economic and health recovery both. They have already set the stage for an ambitious agenda on global health governance with a parallel focus on recovery from the ongoing crisis and preparing for the future health crises that may emerge. We have been a strong advocate in the G20 for supporting equitable and affordable access to COVID-19 disease control tools, including vaccines, therapeutics and diagnostics, through technology transfer, diversification of supply chains, and production hubs. As a result of our efforts, the G20 has recognized that extensive vaccination is a global public good. And I have to again emphasize that this has been our contribution in the G20 lexicon that would be evident at the summit. At the same time, we have used the G20 platform to make a strong case to strengthen and reform the WHO-led global health governance architecture. India supports ongoing efforts to create mechanisms for pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response, including the mobilization of global financing for this purpose, and for addressing the existing gaps, better coordination between stakeholders, better management of common resources to effectively deal with future pandemics. You may recall that it was the initiative of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi that the Saudi presidency convened an extraordinary summit of the G20 on the COVID-19 situation last year. In fact, the G20 has primarily met on economic and financial issues, and the Prime Minister noted that this was the first time the G20 actually met to consider a humanitarian issue. And I think that has stayed with the G20, and that is a new element of working for the global common good, which has been one of the important areas of the vision of the Prime Minister and what India has proposed at international fora. Now, one major outcome of that summit, of the Saudi Arabian hosted summit, as we would recall, is the DSSI, or what is known as the Debt Service Suspension Initiative. One of the most tangible outcomes. More than 45 countries, these are developing and least developed countries, have been provided liquidity relief amounting to over $5 billion as a result of this decision taken by the G20. It has helped countries focus their resources on addressing the socio-economic impact of the pandemic. India has supported the extension of the Debt Service Suspension Initiative until the end of December this year. The G20 has also played an important role in orchestrating global response to the pandemic. India chairs the G20 Framework Working Group, which has been tasked with formulating the G20's economic response to the pandemic. This has provided us with a unique vantage point for influencing the manner in which global economic response is being designed. Our work has ensured that countries, especially advanced economies, take into account the spillovers of domestic policy action so that the impact of these actions on the rest of the world is minimized. We have been particularly careful in ensuring that there's no premature withdrawal of support, and the most vulnerable sections of the population, which have been the most severely hit by the pandemic, are provided necessary support as long as they need to recover from the pandemic. We have, of course, benefited from clear communications from the finance ministries and central bank governors about their policy stances. Further, India has also used the G20 platform to build international cooperation to improve tax transparency, to fight illegal practices such as tax evasion, tax avoidance, round tipping, base erosion and profit sharing, beneficial ownership, money laundering, bribery, corruption and other crimes. We have pushed for coordination on international taxation matters to address the mismatch between the source of generation of profits and the jurisdiction where they are taxed. The reform agreements reached, that is the global minimum tax deal, which you are familiar with, will ensure that large multinational companies pay a minimum effective corporate tax, stopping the race to the bottom in corporate taxes by adopting a global minimum tax rate. This will benefit India by tackling the shifting of businesses to low tax jurisdictions or tax havens. As the co-chair of the G20 Anti-Corruption Working Group, India has also worked very closely with all G20 members to come out with some strong and tangible outcomes, including G20 high-level principles on preventing and combating corruption in emergencies. India has contributed significantly towards the 5 think pieces related to asset recovery, information sharing, law enforcement cooperation, technology and denial of safe havens. The important outcomes of these think pieces have been included in the Anti-Corruption Working Group Action Plan for 2022-24. Italy holds the presidency of the G20 as well as the co-chairmanship of COP26. In other words, they are involved with both summits. And these, as you know, these are both back-to-back summits. The global agenda on climate change and energy transition is the focus for both these summits. So G20 will also consider climate change, of course, and as we move into more specialized focus on climate change at the COP26. We have been supportive of the priority attached by the Italian presidency to building international consensus to combat climate change. We have made significant contributions to the discussions on this issue within the G20 by strongly advocating developing countries' concerns and perspectives. As I mentioned earlier, India, along with other developing countries, has pushed for the G20 to gradually expand its mandate to focus on comprehensively meeting the Sustainable Development Agenda. Thus, over time, we have seen the G20 focus more strongly on issues of universal health coverage, agriculture, food security and nutrition, quality education and quality jobs, women's employment and gender equality, and the digital inclusion. As a developing country, we have used G20 Forum to bring attention to these issues and build support and mobilize resources for those who need them most. This year, the Italian presidency convened a special session of the G20 Foreign and Development Ministers on food security and nutrition in June this year. And we ensured that the proposed policies and decisions did not lose sight of the interests of small and marginal farmers, the conservation of local food culture, and to promote biodiversity and ensure food security in a sustainable manner. This allows us to complement the effort being undertaken domestically to end hunger and malnutrition through our national food security mission. Digital focus has also been a strong point in G20. In line, we have worked in the G20 in line with our Digital India mission, digital inclusion, social security benefits by leveraging technology. The idea of data for development is a strongly Indian idea instead of treating it as a tool for profit. Discussions at the G20 will influence policies and standards in the years to come, and our voice has been on balancing the benefits of technology along with potential risks. There is unanimity in the G20 on building back from the pandemic by focusing on job creation, skill development, and I think this is an important part of the overall discussions and the agenda that will be there. Women's empowerment, increased participation in women's workforce, also for international travel. I think that is an important point. Resumption of international travel through mutual recognition of national vaccine documents. This has been our proposal, and there is strong support within emerging market economies in the group in this regard. Let me stop on my G20 part, other than to say that the G20 remains a valuable forum for India's engagement with the major economies of the world and setting the trend and norms for global economic development and recovery. We will be joining the G20 Troika on the 1st of December this year, and will continue to be a voice for the common citizens of developing countries and emerging market economies in the G20. Let me move on to the COP26 part of the Prime Minister's travels. The Prime Minister will be in Glasgow, United Kingdom, to attend the World Leaders Summit of the 26th Conference of Parties, COP26, to the United Nations Framework Conference on Climate Change, UNFCCC. It's a rather long, let's say, nomenclature, but nonetheless, I thought I should at least mention it once. This is the invitation, of course, of the Prime Minister of the UK, His Excellency Mr. Boris Johnson. COP26 was originally slated to be in 2020, deferred to 2021 in view of the COVID situation. It will be held from the 31st of October to the 12th of November. And as I mentioned, it will be co-chaired by UK and Italy. And over the course of these 13 days, meetings will collectively discuss over 100 agenda items. Most of them would be highly technical in nature. The third segment, the high-level segment of the COP26, which is where heads of state and government are involved, will be titled The World Leaders Summit. It will be held on the 1st and 2nd of November 2021 and is expected to be attended by heads of state and government of more than 120 countries. So fairly wide representation at this summit. By way of background, the UNFCCC concluded in 1992. It embodies the global will and vision to combat climate change. For 3 decades, the UN has been bringing together almost every country in the world for global climate change summits called the Conference of Parties. These Conference of Parties provide opportunity for stock taking, charting the way forward to combat climate change. The last such meeting attended by the Prime Minister was in Paris in 2015, which was when the Paris Agreement was concluded. 2021 marks the start of the implementation of the Paris Agreement. Under the Paris Agreement, all parties have targets in the shape of nationally determined contributions for combating climate change. Our own, in India, our own traditional ethos promotes living in harmony with nature, values sustainable lifestyles. It forms an important part of our comprehensive approach to the COP26. Despite our huge developmental challenges, we are taking ambitious action on expanding clean and renewable energy, energy efficiency, afforestation, and biodiversity. Today, India is creating new records in collective effort for climate adaptation, mitigation, and resilience, and forging multilateral alliances. We are among the top countries in the world in terms of installed renewable energy, wind and solar energy capacity. Our capacity for renewable energy has increased by more than 250% in the last 6 or 7 years, and we are on course to achieve our target of 450 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030 that the Prime Minister declared last year. There are schemes, national schemes such as Roshni, which is the energy efficiency roadmap, Ujala, which is the cooking gas mission, Ujjwala, and Ujala, which is the LED lighting, PM Kusum, which is the solar energy for agriculture. The Jal Jeevan mission is the drinking water supply mission. Energy efficiency, LED lights, clean cooking fuel, tap water have reached hundreds of millions of our citizens in the past few years. A comprehensive national hydrogen energy mission with its emphasis on generating and utilizing green hydrogen will be a quantum leap in tackling climate change. In his Independence Day address this year, the Prime Minister had put forth the vision of India as a global hub for green hydrogen production and export in the coming 25 years. We have launched first, of course, if you take into account the fact that we represent 1/6 of humanity. We are one of the large countries also in terms of geographical space in the world. For us, it is not just the domestic initiatives that we have taken, which is, I would say, contributes greatly to the overall global actions on climate change, but we have also contributed to multilateral initiatives. In other words, global initiatives to deal with the issue of climate change. These initiatives are in the form of the International Solar Alliance, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, among the fastest growing international organizations in the world, making important contributions to create low carbon pathways for industry transition, climate adaptation, enhancing infrastructure resilience, solar projects and technology. Essentially, at COP26, we will work to achieve completion of the Paris Agreement implementation guidelines, mobilization of climate finance, actions to strengthen climate adaptation, technology development and transfer, and keeping the reach of the Paris Agreement of limiting the rise in global temperature. The Prime Minister will deliver the national statement at the World Leaders Summit on the 1st of November. He will participate in leaders-level events organized by the COP26 presidency around the themes of climate change mitigation, adaptation, and building resilience, clean technology innovation, and deployment. So there are several sessions within the COP26, but there are also a number of side events. One of the important events is the launch of the Global Green Grids Initiative, the One Sun, One World, One Grid of the International Solar Alliance. The Prime Minister will also separately launch the Infrastructure for Resilient Island States, or IRIS, an initiative of the Coalition of Disaster Resilient Infrastructure for island countries. This is primarily for small island developing states. This will be launched with the two other co-chairs, the UK Prime Minister and the Australian Prime Minister. It will also involve many world leaders who will be part of that effort, and these events will have high-level representation from many countries and the UN. The Prime Minister will also have several bilateral meetings on the sidelines of COP26, including in Italy with the Prime Minister of Italy, who is the host of G20, and at COP26 with the Prime Minister of the UK, who is the host of the COP26. He will also, Prime Minister will be calling on His Holiness Pope Francis at the Vatican when he is in Rome. He, as I mentioned, will be meeting several other world leaders. Keep in mind, of course, that beyond the bilateral meetings that we are scheduling, this is work in progress. Both these summits actually have a lot of roundtable interactions. So you meet a lot of heads of state and government even in the normal course of attending these summits. We are looking forward to a COP26 that would bring forth fair and objective discussions and a balanced outcome. We hope that the COP26 will register path-breaking advances on finance, technology transfer, capacity building support. Achieving breakthroughs on these vital issues will help foster a green and inclusive recovery. We'll stop here.
Thank you very much, sir. I think that was really a good comprehensive understanding, not just of the contours of the visit, but also on the elements that are likely to come up during these two very important summits. Now, I know there are a lot of questions, so we'll probably take a group. Let me start with you here. Please introduce yourself and the outlet so that we have it for record.
फॉरेन सेक्रेटरी मैं मनीष झा हूँ TV9 से। जैसा कि आपने कहा तो प्रधानमंत्री वेटिकन में जब पोप से मिलेंगे तो क्या ये 1-to-1 मीटिंग होगी या डेलीगेशन के साथ होगी, और क्या प्रधानमंत्री और पोप की किसी विषय पर बातचीत भी होने वाली है या केवल कट से वेट होगी है?
Okay. Please, one by one.
Sir, I am Akhilesh Suman from Sansad TV. When you are telling about this One World, One Sun, One Grid launch, is it just between India and UK or other countries will also participate in that? It is about COP26. And other question about G20, that you are talking about better management of future pandemics. What India has noticed a mismanagement in this during this pandemic? Can you tell us, and will you raise this question in G20?
You were next. Yeah. Okay.
So, could we have some details on the bilateral meetings? Have any of them been finalized? The PM at Rome and at Glasgow? And a follow-up question to what Manish asked about the call on the Pope. So there was there were lots of requests that the Pope should visit India, and he had visited South Asia a few years ago, but not visited India. So any will there be any what shall I say hopes of a papal visit anytime soon? Thanks.
There is Sridhar from. We'll take one more here. Okay, please.
I'm Kadambini from NDTV India. When we talk about better management of future pandemics, would there also be a push for finding out the origin of present pandemic in G20?
So I think we'll just take this round.
Well, let me start with the bilateral issue, and many of the questions were on that. I mentioned some of the bilaterals. He'll be meeting the chairs of both the G20 and COP26 in a bilateral capacity. He'll be going to Italy, so he'll meet the Italian Prime Minister. He'll be going to Rome, he'll going to UK, he'll meet the UK Prime Minister. He will also call on the Pope, as I said. और पोप हिज होलीनेस पोप के साथ क्या डिस्कशंस होंगे वो मैं बता नहीं पाऊँगा अभी. इसमें ये तो ज़रूर साबित है कि ये एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण मीटिंग है. प्राइम मिनिस्टर जब रोम जा रहे हैं, वेटिकन जा रहे हैं, तो पोप को ज़रूर मिलना ज़रूरी है वहाँ पे. और इसमें मेरे ख्याल से 1-to-1 होगी या डेलीगेशन लेवल टॉक्स होगी, वो तय होंगे. पर नॉर्मली ये मीटिंग्स में कुछ डेलीगेशन मेंबर्स तो होते हैं इन मीटिंग्स में दोनों तरफ से. With regard to bilaterals, let me say that besides the ones that I've mentioned, we are also looking at meeting the Saudi Arabian Crown Prince who will be there. That is the past president. Saudi Arabia, as you know, is the past president, immediate past president of G20. We will be meeting the next president of the G20, which is the Indonesian presidency, the president of Indonesia. There are a very large number of bilaterals that are still being worked out. I will not be able to give you the details now, but I think at the venue and before the bilaterals, we will certainly provide a list of those that have been firmed up. But I think you have to keep in mind, as I said, that there is scope for a number of meetings which are in the margins and within the conferences themselves. And we have kept room for those sort of meetings as well. In terms of the management of the pandemic, I think this is an important point of discussion. In the run-up, as you know, there has been a summit, health summit that the Italian presidency hosted in May earlier this year. There's been a fair amount of discussion on how to deal with the issue of both the current pandemic and future pandemics that may arise, the global health architecture, how we can deal with it. The G20 is going to come up with very concrete, I would say, outcomes on this, and you will have to look out for it. There is a suggestion to create mechanisms that would cater to the requirements of future health pandemics. Again, until this issue is fully decided, I can't share with you details of this, but there is some fairly intensive discussions on the sort of architecture that the G20 could create that could supplement international cooperation, collaboration, dealing with future pandemics. The issue of the origin of the COVID virus has been a subject of a fair amount of discussion in international fora. And as you know, this issue is being dealt with by the WHO. And this issue will continue to be addressed in the appropriate forums. I think I would have covered most of the questions that have been asked in this round.
Yes, sir. I think that covers most of those things. Let me have, hold on. Let me start off with one lady here.
Yeah. Hello, this is Archana Chaudhary from Bloomberg. Could you give us say something more about this international, this mutual recognition of vaccines proposal of India's, and also what would be the criteria for this recognition?
One second. Yeah, please.
Hello, sir. Rishikesh from Sputnik News. Global economy, including Indian industries, are suffering from chip shortages, and it is most of the experts and even some agencies are saying that this issue will persist over 2 years, at least 2 years. So, will there be any concrete proposal from Indian side how to tackle this semiconductor chip shortages?
Please.
मैं ब्रह्म प्रकाश वंशी न्यूज़ से। मेरा सवाल ये है कि WHO का इस पेंडेमिक की शुरुआत से लेकर जो रवैया रहा है, पहले WHO पर आरोप लगे कि चाइना में जो ओरिजिन था वो सही वक्त पर जानकारी नहीं दी। अब कोवैक्सीन को लेकर जो WHO का रवैया है, कोवैक्सीन के अप्रूवल को, जो भारतीय वैक्सीन है, उसको लेकर कई भारतीय एक्सपर्ट्स कह रहे हैं कि ये वेस्टर्न इंटरेस्ट के चलते WHO ने ये रवैया अपनाया है, जो देरी की जा रही है भारतीय वैक्सीन कोवैक्सीन को अप्रूवल के लिए। तो क्या इसको आप लोगों ने कंसीडर किया है, ये होगा एजेंडा में ये मुद्दा? Thank you.
One second. Before that, Nainima.
Nainima from The Print. Will we raise the issue of the TRIPS waiver for COVID vaccine, something that India had floated along with South Africa at the WTO? Thank you.
The last round here, this one. You want to ask? Yeah. No, hold on. I saw his hand first. We'll come back for another round. No.
Sir, you said there'll be a bilateral with Draghi. They have been pushing this Leonardo case for quite a while. Is that going to be under discussion, and is any kind of breakthrough partial waiver likely? Secondly, this is also a time, at a time when you are having a lot of bilaterals in both countries. There is a considerable pressure coming in terms of cross-border incidents that has gone up recently, and there is also a planned way to bring all this up. Will this be discussed in bilateral meetings with friendly countries?
So we'll take this round and
Well, let's start with Archana's question on mutual recognition of vaccines. As you know, India has proposed to our partner countries, primarily countries that Indian citizens normally travel to, that we should have a mutual, that you recognize our vaccine certification, and we will mutually recognize your country's vaccine certification. Now, the advantage of that is that as we keep adding new vaccines to our, let us say, stock of national vaccines, you don't need to go to every country to try and get recognition. You recognize the certification that we issue, you recognize its integrity, and we will give you mutual treatment. I'm happy to say that a number of countries have already agreed to that. So we have achieved some reciprocal arrangements with a number of countries. We are working with all of our partner countries to have similar arrangements. It will simplify international travel. It will normalize international travel. It's an important objective of the G20, as I mentioned, to not only effect recovery in terms of health, but also economic recovery. So business travelers, tourists which contribute to the recovery of economies will be greatly benefited from this, let's say, simplified international travel regime that we are proposing. And we will certainly, we have taken it up with the G20, we have taken it up bilaterally, we have taken it up in plurilateral forums. We will continue to advocate this as a means of better and easier access to citizens traveling all over the world. I think the question from Rishikesh was about chip shortages and, whether we will raise that issue, I think that is a valid point. We have raised it in the past also in other meetings that we have had at the summit level. Recently, Prime Minister went to the United States. The talk of the issue of resilient, sustainable, secure, stable supply chains was taken up, was discussed extensively with our partners. We will continue to advocate this in our various meetings that we will have. The idea is to try and ensure that there is a greater, I would say, preparedness for meeting such situations through greater collaboration with our main partners and the international community. जी न्यूज़ से आपका सवाल था कोवैक्सीन अप्रूवल के बारे में. जैसे आपको पता है WHO का एक जो टेक्निकल एक्शन ग्रुप जो है, जो टैग कहते हैं, ये रेगुलेटरी ग्रुप है. इनकी मीटिंग हुई थी 26 तारीख को. उस मीटिंग में इन्होंने कुछ प्रश्न पूछे थे भारत बायोटेक को, जिस पे जैसे हमें सूचना मिली है वो सब जवाब भारत बायोटेक जल्दी से जल्दी WHO को दे देगी. मेरे ख्याल से ये रेगुलेटरी जो ग्रुप है, एक बार इनके जो प्रश्न अच्छी तरह रिस्पॉन्ड हो जाते हैं तो अप्रूवल, कोवैक्सीन के लिए अप्रूवल भी तुरंत आना चाहिए उसके बाद. पर आपको ये समझ में आना चाहिए कि ये एक टेक्निकल ग्रुप है, रेगुलेटरी ग्रुप है. इमरजेंसी यूज़ ऑथराइजेशन का रिक्वेस्ट जो है WHO के साथ टेक्निकल कंसिडरेशंस पे होते हैं, और हम बड़ी केयरफुली फॉलो कर रहे हैं जो डिस्कशंस हो रहे हैं WHO में, और हमें पूरी उम्मीद है कि जल्दी से जल्दी कोवैक्सीन को WHO की अप्रूवल मिल जाएगी. विथ रिगार्ड टू Nainima's question on TRIPS waiver, we have advocated for technology transfer and diversification of supply chains and production hubs to ensure affordable and equitable access to COVID-19 disease control tools. I'm happy to share that the G20 has recognized extensive vaccination as a global public good. I mentioned that earlier, and I think that is where discussions in the G20 will be relevant. Finally, I think Sirinjoy's question on Italy and the issue of Leonardo, it is obviously, as you know, there have been some issues because of their listing by our Ministry of Defense. I understand there have been conversations between us and Italy on this in an attempt to resolve some of the outstanding issues there. I'm sure we'll be seeing more on this as we as we go along and as we I would say have our meeting with the Italian side. Cross-border terrorism is an issue that we have raised with all of our bilateral partners and interlocutors. It is a very important issue. It was raised in Washington, D.C. when the Prime Minister was there, and it undoubtedly will be raised with those countries with whom this needs to be flagged.
Thank you, sir. I will hold up. Yes, please, there.
Sir, Kalwal from The Hindu. The humanitarian situation in Afghanistan is becoming extremely difficult every day. So what is India going to bring to the table as far as Afghanistan is concerned at G20? Is there a near future plan to engage Taliban also in a multilateral manner?
Yes.
सर, मैं मधुरेंद्र न्यूज़ नेशन से. मेरा सवाल सर COP26 को लेकर है. COP21 से लेकर और COP26 तक 5 साल का वक्त निकल चुका है, लेकिन पेरिस कन्वेंशन को लागू नहीं किया जा सका. दूसरी तरफ ग्लोबल वार्मिंग लगातार बढ़ रही है. हम ये भी जानते हैं कि जो क्योटो प्रोटोकॉल था 1997 का, उसमें भी जो टर्म्स फाइनलाइज किए गए थे उसे भी लागू नहीं किया गया. तो क्या उम्मीद रखी जाए COP26 से, क्या माना जाए कोई इस तरह का निर्णय इस फोरम पे लिया जा सकेगा जिसे पूरी तरह इम्प्लीमेंट करके जो ग्लोबल वार्मिंग के चैलेंजेज हैं और सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट के चैलेंजेज हैं उसे पूरा किया जा सकेगा? मेरा दूसरा सवाल G20 से जुड़ा हुआ है कि हम जानते हैं कि आतंकवाद का खतरा सबसे ज़्यादा इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट के सामने है। तो क्या आपको लगता है तालिबान और ख़ासतौर पर अफगानिस्तान से जिस तरह के आतंकवाद के रूट्स इस वक्त जो है डेवलप हो रहे हैं, उसकी चर्चा होगी, उसको लेकर भी कोई ठोस निर्णय होगा?
Somebody here had, yeah. No, before that, yeah, please, you raised your hand.
So I'm Sandeep Dikshit with the Tribune. First one is on G20. We've been fighting for revision of IMF quotas. So is there some kind of a finality now coming? We got a very small distribution once upon a time and nothing since then. So are we moving on that? And on COP27, to add to Madhuren's question, the developed countries have said that they would be able to raise the $100 billion in financing only after 3 years. So does that put a dampener on the efforts of developing countries to meet their NDC and meet the technology and other costs for that?
Last question for the round.
Hi, Smita Sharma. Just to follow up on the Afghanistan question, other than the G20 forum, given that they're actually facing a famine situation right now, is India planning to help with any kind of grain stocks? And the absence of Xi Jinping, the biggest CO2 emitter, I think most environmentalists were also surprised that the PM decided to actually be there in person. So how would that impact the absence of the Chinese president on the forum?
Well, I think the humanitarian situation in Afghanistan was asked by more than one of our friends here. G20 did, under Italian presidency, organize a special summit-level meeting on the humanitarian situation in Afghanistan. As you know, Prime Minister himself participated in that meeting. I think our position was made clear that while on every issue, we believe that the international benchmarks set by Resolution 2593 of 2593 of the UN Security Council has to be met. On the issue of humanitarian assistance, I think we have been forthcoming because we realize that that assistance is for the people of Afghanistan, and Prime Minister did offer to contribute food grains to alleviate that situation. We did say that we would like to see such assistance provided in a direct, unhindered and unimpeded manner, and that its distribution also should be through the UN or other independent agencies. But what is important is that we are alive to the situation of the humanitarian situation, the humanitarian needs of Afghanistan, and we will be responsive to that situation if the correct circumstances are prevalent in doing so. I think there was a question on whether Paris commitments are being met, and I think both News Nation as well as Sandeep Dikshit had raised issues of financial commitments also, whether those are forthcoming. So in the first place, of course, COP26 has COP21 in Paris did have certain commitments that were to be fulfilled. I'm happy to say that India has been one of the best performers in the G20 as far as meeting commitments of COP26 are concerned. We are well on our way to meeting our NDC commitments and even doing better than that. So from our perspective, our commitments have been very much in place. Not only have we committed to NDCs at Paris, we have also made unilateral, I would say, announcements that really set the benchmark much higher for us and for other countries. As far as financial commitments are concerned, that is a different issue, because while it is correct that $100 billion, as Sandeep mentioned, had been declared as an annual contribution towards climate change efforts, I think the problem is that we would like to see such commitments converted into promises. The quantum of such financing is also, in our view, inadequate. You need much more financing in order to reach the goals that have been set, the very ambitious goals that we need to collectively meet at a global level in order to achieve the 1.5 degrees that we're talking about. And of course, the means of delivering that financing also has to be made clear. So green financing, green technology are important factors in enabling the world, in particularly developing countries, meet their commitments to the goals established under our climate change discussions. This is something that I'm sure will occupy the leaders, will occupy the negotiators, and this is something that we expect to see some outcomes on, not only in terms of your commitments in terms of NDCs at the summit and what is called a sort of review of those commitments in Glasgow, but also I would say sort of a review of the financial backstopping that is very important for developing countries, small island developing states, countries like ours that have a very, very, I would say, in terms of per capita emissions, in terms of the size of our country, and the fact that we have some way to go before we peak in terms of our own industrial development. That effort that we are making in developmental terms to achieve what is important in climate change terms has to be recognized and has to be supported through appropriate financing and technology that has to be forthcoming from the international community. In particular, the developed world has to look at how to make this something that is achievable and realizable, the goals and targets that we set for ourselves. So let me just try and put it in perspective that we are going to Glasgow with a positive mindset. India has always approached the issue of climate change in a manner that is constructive. As I said, we have not only set NDCs, we have set targets that far exceed the NDCs by ourselves within our own country. And we have every intention to reach it. I think in terms of our own performances, we have, I think, done much better than many other countries, but that is not our gauge. Our gauge is internal. We want to ensure that we have the conditions that are necessary for us to have, I would say, to achieve our own targets, and this is an important objective for us, for our own people. But we have also contributed to the global framework in mitigating, adapting the effects of climate change through the International Solar Alliance, through the Coalition of Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, and building consensus within the global community on how to achieve this. So I think our contribution at Glasgow would be important, and we would certainly want to go there to make that difference. But as I said, we would also expect that there would be commitments that would be forthcoming from those countries that have already peaked some time back, those countries that are occupying a much larger space in the global, carbon space as it is, and who I think would need to see how we can best work together in a spirit of collaboration to achieve our common objective of humanity in meeting our climate change objectives. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we did respond to the issue of cross-border terrorism. The G20 agenda, of course, is an economic oriented agenda. It is important that the issue of terrorist financing, etc., is addressed. But as I said, what is important is to see how issues like corruption, money laundering, tax evasion, these are issues where G20 is most active, and we will certainly be active there. But we will not be running short, we will not be falling short in any way on raising issues that are important to us, whether it is the issue of cross-border terrorism, whether it is the issue of terrorist financing, or any other terrorism-related issues that impact on the international community and ourselves.
Thank you, sir. We'll just take a last set of few questions. Yeah, please.
So Neville from Sky News. So you've talked about NDCs, and we're getting to our targets. The big breakthrough is committing to net zero by 2050. Are we looking at India committing to net zero?
Yeah, please. Microphone.
ऐसे आसिफ इन दिनों से मेरा सवाल है कि प्रधानमंत्री के इटली और इंग्लैंड के दौरे के बीच में क्या इंडियन कम्युनिटी के बीच में भी कोई इंटरेक्शन की है प्रोग्राम?
Your microphone, please.
I'm Elizabeth with Mint. I just wanted to ask Foreign Secretary, since you mentioned that we have bettered our record where the NDCs are concerned, is it possible that we announce updated NDCs at this conference? Especially when you said that, we would like to have a constructive approach to the talks.
So I think that's the end of the question.
Well, we have one question on net zero and one question on updated NDCs. But let me start. पहले आपका प्रश्न का मैं जवाब दूंगा. प्रधानमंत्री आपको पता है कि जहाँ भी जाते हैं भारतीय समुदाय के साथ ज़रूर मिलते हैं, और इस बार भी जब इटली जाएंगे और यूके जाएंगे, ग्लासगो में ख़ासतौर से ग्लासगो में जाएंगे, तो भारतीय समुदाय के साथ ज़रूर मुलाकात होगी. कोविड के कारण से रिस्ट्रिक्शंस हैं, तो बड़े मीटिंग्स हो नहीं पाएंगे, पर छोटे ग्रुप्स पे मीटिंग ज़रूर होंगे, और जैसे भी मतलब सर्कमस्टांसेस के हिसाब से जो मीटिंग्स हो सकते हैं वो ज़रूर होंगे, जो मुझे पता है. As far as the net zero that Sky News had called for, had asked, there is a global net zero, and G20 will reflect that concept. And, we certainly support a global net zero. A global net zero means that those who have peaked earlier will have to contribute to that. Those who have larger emissions will have to look at, in per capita terms, will have to also keep that in mind. But obviously, every country has to make its efforts to reach a global net zero. Whether we will specifically go into that, or whether we will have updated NDCs is something that we will have to see. I cannot preempt our discussions and negotiations at COP26 at this stage. My objective is only to give you a sense of our outlook in advance of our participation in these two important summits. What I can only reiterate is that we will go there with a positive mindset. We will engage proactively on issues that involve climate change. We already have, nationally determined contributions that have been registered at Paris. We will continue to. We have, as I said, not almost achieved those targets. We are well on our way to achieving those targets, and we will see whether we need to, in any way, review those. But whether it is net zero or whether it is revised NDCs, that's not important. What is important is that we will be a contributing factor in the global discussions at COP26.
So thank you very much, sir, for your detailed and a lot of questions that you took. We appreciate very much the presence here of Shri Harshvardhan Shringla, Foreign Secretary, as well as of Joint Secretary Srinivas Gotru. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for further updates as the Prime Minister's visit goes on, and we will certainly share with you both through our video channels as well as on print and our social media, whatever the details of the forthcoming visit. Thank you again for being here. Good evening.